Favi, man, we got the back-to-back streams going, man. We got some big news today. I texted you like a couple hours ago because I think this report's like 3 hours old, but we have a possible seismic shift in the MLS landscape with a new mechanism being introduced. But before we get into that, how you doing, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing well. I'm a little puzzled on this new rule here. Yeah, like why did it happen now? Why didn't it happen before the transfer window opened up? So interesting, interesting timing by MLS, to be honest. Especially after all these guys didn't, show up to preseason or the medical tests. So interesting timing for everything.
Yes. Before we get into it, guys, make sure you like the stream down below, share with a friend. Hey, Favi, last two streams we've done, both videos have gotten over 100 likes. We got 136 likes on our video that we did last night. Let's hit 100 again tonight. I know we can do it with your guys' help. Share with a friend, like the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Remember, 6,000 subscribers is our goal that we're trying to hit by opening day, which is a little over a month away. So make sure you subscribe. And let's get into the news, Fabian. But, okay, first of all, Tom Bogert reported this. He says MLS implements internal cash-based trade system. I'm going to read this snippet real quick. MLS has officially passed a new cash-based internal trade system, which will go into effect immediately. Sources tell Give Me Sport. The league is calling it a cash for players trade. Sources add it allows teams to spend transfer fees on players within MLS for the first time. So this is not going to be anything to do with GAM, anything to do with TAM. This is its own separate mechanism. And he said previously teams could only trade allocation money, players, or other MLS specific assets to acquire players. Clubs will be allowed to acquire up to 2 players and trade away up to 2 players, which I think he means sell 2 players. They're going to be able to buy 2 players, sell 2 players in MLS, not trade because it's a separate thing, per year for cash. Teams can still use GAM and other assets to acquire players as well. Now, this is the most interesting thing, Favi. The amount of cash traded must be disclosed in the release announcing the trade. Or I hate they keep using the word trade. It's a sell, right? They're selling players and buying players now. Also, players who are either DPs or U22 initiatives must remain so at their new clubs for the duration of their current contract. Sources across the league now look directly at the Portland Timbers' Evander and FC Cincinnati's Lucho Acosta as players likely to be subject to the new cash trade offers. So I say all of that. What is your thoughts on this news and description of this new rule?
Yeah, it makes you wonder, like, were there players in the past that possibly wanted to go to other teams and then they just couldn't grab the assets for it, right? Like, Jesus Ferreira was a pretty big cash grab, I think, for Dallas, but you would think, could they have gotten 4 million for him? So it's something that I really think about. Like, in the past, do you think there was guys that wanted to move clubs but couldn't because the money was better outside of the league for the club than it was inside of the league? Honestly, this might kill parity. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think if Jorge Mas really wants to add a solid MLS player, but not a DP within MLS, shoot, he'll throw 2 million at a guy, right? So, like, who's a guy that really stands out that's not a DP, that's on a great deal, that Miami could use? Let me try to think.
Steven Moreira, the center back for Columbus Crew.
Right. Let's say, yeah, exactly. Moreira. There's no way Columbus doesn't take 2 million, right? Like, if you get offered 2 million for a guy like that, I mean, maybe a West Coast guy, so that let me see, like Joveljic, right? Joveljic is a guy who maybe other teams take a look at now. Yeah, this is interesting. It's truly interesting. The timing's weird. The timing should have been earlier. I don't know. I just don't know what to think of this system. Now we're gonna have to make a name for it too. It's gonna have to be GAM, TAM, and RAM or something. Real allocation money.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they would call this, but here's another thing I want to add. In this article, it said for new salary cap and roster rules to be implemented in MLS, which a lot of fans were disappointed that there wasn't anything crazy, including myself. They had to be voted by the Sporting and Competition Committee, previously known as the Product Strategy Committee. All these weird names, man. Before it got there, it had to be recommended by the Sporting Committee. So many damn committees, dude. What the hell is going on? But either way, that's a little bit more difficult because if you want to increase the salary cap or if you want to increase or do certain roster rules, not only does the league have to approve it, but the players have to approve it because it affects them, right? I mean, it's how much money they can negotiate, how much money they're getting, certain other benefits. They have to also agree with it. But you know what I'm really confused about this rule? One thing that confuses me is how much is there a limit to how much you can spend? And if that, okay, say,
like if you're Miami and Seattle right now, Seattle is not, to be honest, Seattle doesn't have the money to splash it like that. But let's say you're Jorge Mas. You're about to be in the Club World Cup. I'm literally asking my GM today to make sure I have a list of every player that's not a TAM and not a DP, excuse me. And I'm getting every single player that's not in those categories so that I can boost this roster to go ahead and get Messi these cups, right? Like, why wouldn't you be doing that? It's only once in a lifetime that you have the best player in the world. You're not going to strike gold again. Hopefully you do, but you have to buy every single MLS player that's not a DP and not a TAM player at this moment.
Well, this is my biggest question though, Fabi. Let's say hypothetically that New York City FC want to buy Evander from Portland. Okay, they offer $10 million for him, which is what Portland paid for him. So if New York City FC writes a check for $10 million to Portland, is that just cash in their pocket? Can they
Right.
convert any of that money to GAM? Like,
Yeah,
how
right.
does that work? I mean, that doesn't really. I mean, obviously, it'd be nice to get money for him, right? But I think they would want to get some more assets to be able to buy other players when they get rid of him.
Yeah, it's almost like, do you trust your ownership group, right? Like, if you're a Quakes fan, I don't think you want to sell any guy for this because Fisher's just gonna pocket that money, right? So it's interesting. Yeah, you almost want like a combination of GAM and that to be able to go ahead and invest in your club right away. So, or is it like the transfer fee rule where up to 3 million could be turned into GAM next year, right? Like how if you sell a DP or TAM player, that's how it is now.
Yeah, and so there's still some things that need to be clarified on this. One of the examples we were talking about before, you talk about Chicho Arango or Jesus Ferreira. Like, hey, why didn't Seattle just wait to trade or sell Jesus Ferreira for money instead of having to, or excuse me, Dallas sell Jesus Ferreira for money instead of trading GAM for him? They could have got maybe more money, but if they don't allow you to convert some of this into general allocation money, which if you guys don't follow MLS closely, it's just a mechanism to help you acquire other players. It gives you a little bit more spending freedom. If you can't convert that, Fabi, it makes sense of why you would do the GAM trade.
So if you're Inter Miami, why not go get Neymar? Bring Neymar and Neymar.
I don't know if I don't know if the Neymar I don't know if the Neymar.
Seriously, if I'm Miami, I'm throwing 2 million at Neymar for Neymar, and that defense is already shored up. Like or a goalkeeper, right? Like Andre Blake. Like I don't know. I just think a lot of these ambitious owners are gonna really abuse this, and you're gonna see parity just poof gone.
Okay, well, we need to talk. Okay, let's get the chat involved. We got 57 people in here. If you haven't already, like the show down below. We're trying to hit 100 again for 2 nights in a row. I want you guys to let me know, yes or no, do you like this move or not? Yes or no? Do you like the fact that MLS is introducing interleague transfers, essentially, not trades, transfers? You can buy and sell players. Now, it's only 2 per year. But do you like that you're finally able to buy and sell players in the league? Let me know down below what you guys think. Ridiculous Reefing says MLS already has weird rules about spending. We don't need more things to remember. I tell you what, it is crazy. I mean, you got to start writing this down, right?
Well, like Miami is the most polarizing team, right? So like, where would they use this? I mean, would you buy Insigne? Like, can a team buy Insigne? Like, but he's not worth more than 2 million again, right? So it's something to kind of think about too. Like, does a team go and get Bernadeschi? No, his salary is too high. It's weird. Like, I think Miami, to be honest, I think Miami should go get Neymar, go get Morera, right? Like, go get 2 surefire center backs. I don't know. Like, that's exactly what I would spend it on personally.
Seems like the chat's agreeing with us, or agreeing that they like it, but you have to. The only thing we have to preface this, like you just said, Lorenzo Insigne. If a team bought him, they would have his current contract, which is atrocious. He's making 15 million a year.
Would
I
it
don't
be
think
his
any.
contract because it says new contract?
No, it says okay. The amount of cash trade must be disclosed in the release announcing the trade. Also, players who are either DPs or U22 initiatives must remain so at their new clubs for the duration of the current contract.
Oh, okay. So their current contract is still there.
Yes. So I guess theoretically you could negotiate a new deal when they move over, because that happens when you buy players, obviously in any other league.
Right.
They buy them, they negotiate a new contract. But yes, you would have to keep. So Evander, first of all, Evander's upset with Portland because he's not getting paid enough, right? He wanted a little bit more money. So I would assume it doesn't matter where he goes, he's going to want a pay raise. He's going to want them to give him more money. Lucho Acosta's situation is just really weird. I mean, we know that there's some stuff behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But so we'll have to see how that plays out. I don't even know if he wants, I don't think he wants to stay here at all. It doesn't matter what team he's playing for. I think he wants to go back to.
It's like he wants to go back to Argentina for sure. It's not like I want to go to another club. So it is weird. It is odd. Like, can you think of another player in MLS that's not a DP or TAM that Miami would want?
That's not a DP or a TAM or a U22 player, like any player?
Any player, because for me, this is a rule to help Miami in the Club World Cup. Like, this looks like that.
You know who I would buy if I was Miami?
Ooh.
I would try to buy Kalina from Charlotte.
Yeah, right. Just go get the best goalkeeper possible, right?
Well, this is the thing. You get to buy 2 players and you get to sell 2 players. Like that. I mean, they're trying to limit it to a certain degree, right? They're not trying to like just go crazy, but you can buy 2 of the best players. Now, what I want to know is
not a DP and not a TAM.
Who?
Lloris. Do you go buy Lloris?
He ain't leaving. He ain't leaving LAFC. But I will say this, okay? I've been thinking this needs to happen for a while. One thing you don't see in MLS is you don't see interleague transfers. And you don't see loans often between other clubs. You don't see that. That happens in every other league. And a friend of the show, Mr. will attest to this, especially in the UK, England, the Premier League, Championship, whatever it may be. It's very important to have interleague transfers and loans. We're the only league. Imagine this, Favi. Imagine if you weren't allowed to buy players in the Premier League from other Premier League teams. You could only buy from out of the league.
That'd be wild.
How much would that make the league decline in quality? If you couldn't buy any, like, think about Kyle Walker when he was really good for Tottenham. What if Manchester City couldn't buy him?
Right. Or Raheem Sterling, right?
Or Raheem Sterling, or there's several. Who? Grealish, yes, exactly. Now Romelu Lukaku obviously never pans out any of the big Premier League teams, but imagine if you couldn't buy him.
I want to ask the chat, what player do you think moves because of this rule, right? Because I don't see many DPs moving, to be honest. Because in my opinion, I think if you're going to have to bring on a DP salary like Evander, do you go spend $10 million elsewhere? I mean, Evander is proven in this league, yes, but I think it's too much of a risk, to be honest. I don't see many teams besides the LAs, the Miamis, the New Yorks really picking up a contract like that. So chat, tell me, I mean, I think Miami is the easiest team to look at because I think they're going to be the ones that use this. Who does Miami get, from the league that's not a DP and not a TAM and not a U22? Or maybe they do get a U22, right? Maybe it's something that, how they're doing the Facundo Farias trade to open up a U22. Maybe they use this for a U22. But I just think Miami's not going to waste their spots on MLS guys, personally. Especially if you're paying, a premium for those spots. Do you think of any other teams that would use this?
Well, I was just thinking that I was thinking of teams like LAFC, for example, right? They have a DP spot open. They might sell Denis Bouanga to a French team, right? What if they do something like, they're like, hey, we want to get a more proven player in the league. We're going to go to Nashville and buy Hani Mukhtar. We're going to go bring him to LAFC. We're going to try to link him up with Giroud and see if that can help out. Or they want to buy Evander. What if they're able to buy one of these disgruntled DP players, bring them to their team? See, this is what I think is going to happen. I think that if a player, we're going way back in the time machine, okay, for this one. Yeah. When Nacho Piatti came to Montreal back in 2014 from San Lorenzo, I think was the club he was at. Yeah. He said he wanted to come to Montreal so he could prove himself and get a move to a New York club or a big team. I don't think LA was on the radar, but like New York. He wanted to either play for the Red Bulls or New York City FC. But he couldn't do that because it was even harder to trade for players back then. Yeah. So something like this, Favi, a player can come to Montreal, they can go to Toronto, they can go to Vancouver, I'm not trying to name all the Canadian teams, but they can go to these teams, prove themselves, and then maybe become desirable. Enzo Fernandez, remember when he went to Benfica and nobody I mean, people knew who he was, but like it's a different league, but he was able to prove himself, and then Chelsea obviously broke the bank to buy him.
Yeah,
This is a
you remember when he proved himself at an MLS youth tournament?
yeah, no, exactly. Exactly. But you got to think though, this is honestly good for other teams because this gives players an incentive like, hey, if I go to MLS now, I don't have to just stick with this one team and then try to get moved back to South America or Europe. I can go to Colorado, ball out, and if I play well enough, maybe LAFC will buy me, maybe Inter Miami will buy me, maybe LA
Honestly,
Galaxy will buy me.
this just puzzles me about the Chicho Arango trade. This puzzles me for the Jesus Ferreira trade. Like, man, you guys could have waited a week. Chicho Arango could have gone for 1.5 million YAM plus $1 million regular RAM or real money, you know? So I don't know. This is such a weird. Oh, Sebas Ferreira in Houston. Okay. But that guy's a DP, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. I just think it's such a weird thing. Yeah, or Orlando to fill in Facundo Torres' role. You go ahead and go get Evander. I guess so. Right?
Evander would be perfect in Orlando. I would be huge. I don't think that. I don't
Look,
think Columbus would sell Cucho to Orlando, but I do think Evander. That's a good shout, John. That's a really good shout. I think Evander would be a good fit in Orlando.
and I don't think we're gonna see like 10 million from Orlando to Portland. I think what you're gonna see is an international slot, some draft picks, maybe $1 million in GAM, and then 8 million real money. You know, I think you're gonna see
Can you
packaging.
stack it like that though? I don't.
Yeah, you
We'll
can.
have to get some more clarity. Can you stack it?
Yeah, it says that you can trade other assets for it as well.
Where do you see that at?
Uh, pre, uh, calling it cash for players trades. Um, Teams will still use GAM and other assets to acquire players as well. So I'm
But
assuming you can do it all together.
well, so here's the thing. I don't think you okay, so as of right now, you can't use GAM and TAM on the same player to buy one down. It's like very specific. Either you can use GAM on them or use TAM on them. So we'll have to get some more clarity on that. I think, Fabi, just based on what I've seen, this is only cash based. Like there's no cross, like maybe you could trade an international roster spot, but I think this is just mostly cash offers. So like if you want a Vander, you go pay 10 million for him.
I guess guys like Hani Mukhtar, Evander, Lucho, I don't know. Lucho's kind of weird. Evander is a big one. I would think Evander, I just, I just don't see these guys going to another second tier team. Like, I hate to say it. If you're Lucho Acosta, you're going to want to play in Miami, and that's it.
But but listen, that's a good thing though. Like I want everybody to think about this. That is a good thing because, like I just said, even if you're not going to get the premier player in certain clubs, like Evander is probably not going to go to Colorado. He's probably not going to go to, or Cucho's probably not going to go to Colorado or Montreal. But like I said, it's like Wayne Rooney, right? In his prime, when he was playing at Manchester United, he was never going to play at Aston Villa. He was never going to play at Middlesbrough. He was never going to play at Luton Town. Those are clubs he's never going to play for. But you could get a player like Jean Duran, who is absolutely killing it off the bench at Aston Villa right now. And he proves himself at a smaller club in the Premier League. Sorry if there's any Aston Villa fans in the chat. I'm not trying to offend you. But prove himself in a smaller club. That way he has a higher price tag and goes to a bigger club. So these players in South America, Europe, wherever it may be, are going to come to MLS now. They're going to go to teams maybe they wouldn't consider before because they know if they play well, not only are they going to have a European market or a South American market, they also could have an MLS market now. They could ball out and teams will want to buy them.
I just don't see the big teams wasting DP spots on guys who are already in MLS, if that makes sense. So like if I'm Miami,
depends.
Yeah, if I'm Miami, I'm not spending 10 million on Evander, right? Like if I'm LAFC, I'm not spending 10 million. Shoot, the Galaxy, I'm not spending 10 million on Evander, right? So it's something to really think about because do you want a guy that's kind of not that exciting to bring in? You know, like I think your fan base is not going to be happy if you're spending 10 million on Evander. I don't know. I think the timing is so weird because
kind of late.
Very late. Campana could have probably went for 4 million, right? Like it's kind of weird.
Well, see, that's an interesting one because Campana is not a DP or a U22. He was bought down. He's a TAM player. So that one is interesting. But like I said, this is the most important part, okay?
I guess
You
you
know,
have to find
I
out
want the
how
chat to
long
think about this too.
how long their contracts for. Like, how long is Evander's contract for? But he wants a new deal. So how is that going to work too?
Well, so this is what I was going to say. Let's say hypothetically that the Revolution had two options. They could get the 2.5 million in GAM in the international roster. Well, no, they sent the two. Okay, so they paid 2.5 million in GAM, an international roster spot to Inter Miami for Leo Campana. Okay, on the other side, they could have paid $6 million for him and got him straight up. You have to outweigh which one is more beneficial for your team. If Inter Miami can't use that $6 million on their roster, like convert it to GAM, the transfer fee,
Yeah,
then they got the better deal because they can build their roster more.
right.
So I think this only benefits teams, Fabi, that are selling teams that just want to sell their players and get, like, their owner wants to put $6 million of cash in their pocket or $5 million in cash, whatever it may be. That's who this really benefits. This benefits teams who want to buy players and teams who want to sell and make some actual cash. I don't think a team like Seattle or the New England Revolution were going to sell their players like, or excuse me, not Sounders, Dallas, sell Jesus Ferreira for cash because they would rather have the GAM so that they can maybe build their roster a little bit better, like maybe some of the players. And so it's the same thing with Miami. They're trying to, like, it's more beneficial to them to get that general allocation money.
You know what's funny is, what if the Quakes turn around and they just sold Chicho Arango for $4 million, like in this?
Say that again.
What if the Quakes turn around and just sell Chicho Arango to a different team for $4 million, and then Fisher just pockets that money?
That'd be crazy. But I think Bruce Arena would probably be pissed off if that happened. So Brandon brought up an interesting point. He says, yeah, so you're only looking at the positives. You know, this could be turned into a Premier League top six where only a few good teams. That's so great for a league that needs growth. Okay, let me say this. I think parity is already starting to die down in MLS, for one thing. And two, the thing that MLS does that creates parity, okay, I'm going to ask you, Fabio, trivia question. What is the one thing MLS has the Premier League doesn't have?
The best player in the world, Messi, baby.
Man, ding, ding, ding. Hey, let's see. We got this.
I know the answer.
We got the playoff system.
Yeah.
Got the playoff system. That is the parity. Playoffs create parity. Inter Miami was the best team in the league in the regular season. What happened? They got bounced in the first round. So this creates parity when you have the playoffs. That's what's going to create it. So I'm not really worried about it. Also,
the Red Bulls were like 8th or what, 7th, and they made it to the final.
Yes, and also too, this is another important point: salary cap. And you can't buy more than 2 players. It's not like Inter Miami can go buy. Some people were saying Tim Parker, Miles Robinson, Matt Miazga. It's not like they can go buy Yamar, Miles Robinson, Matt Miazga, and just stack them on the roster. They can only buy 2 players and they can only sell 2 players. So they have some safety guards on this so that it doesn't go rampant and just completely spiral out of control.
And if I'm Inter Miami, I'm not selling any player in this.
It really doesn't make sense to. You
right.
know?
You need the GAM. Like, if an offer for $1 million comes in for Drake Callender, you need to do that. You need to do GAM, not this, right? Because then you can use that to buy down possibly Jordi Alba, you know, from a DP to not DP, right? So, like, I feel like you need way more GAM than this, than anything else. But yeah, I'm interested to see what players that aren't DPs and not TAM players that will be traded. But yeah, if I'm Miami, I'm offering $2 million for Yamar, like, instantly. I'm thinking LAFC. Aaron Long is another one that sticks out to me. Murillo would have been a perfect candidate for this if this came out earlier, right? Like, I bet you Miami would have purchased him, no problem. He would have fit right into that locker room. So it is weird timing. I'm not gonna lie, this is weird timing.
It adds to the chaos, man, because there's not, and this is good reporting, obviously.
Yeah,
I think that we're
Tom Loger and Paul Tenorio on this.
We're getting as much information as they have at their disposal. Like, it's limited, right? We just don't have a lot of clarification on what, like, is there a certain amount, like we talked about earlier, that you can convert to GAM? Because if you can do that, let's just say it's like if you sell a guy to Europe, when they sold Thiago Almada, or he didn't get sold to Europe, he got sold to a club in Brazil. They were able to convert, like, what was it, $3 million in GAM now? Is that the max per transfer?
Right.
Or is that the max you can do at a window? If you can do something like that, and then on top of it get that cash, then that's a different story, right? That kind of changes this whole thing. But if it's just cash offers,
You know what?
nothing.
You know what? If Austin sells Driussi, I would see them using this for Evander.
That would be an interesting landing
Right?
spot. Yes.
I would say this works for that. You lose a DP and you need to fill a slot, and you rather did not just swing and miss on a DP that you don't know of. You go ahead and get a Hani Mukhtar or a Vander, and you pay the 7 or 8 million that you just got from Driussi, and it's basically a reset. But it's already a guy who knows MLS, so I can see that. I can see like the second tier teams taking more advantage of this than the first tier. Like in terms of like world power, like in terms of world transfer power, right? Like Miami, I don't think you're using this on DPs. LAFC, I wouldn't even think you still have that slot open for Griezmann. The Galaxy, you already struck gold with Peck and Paintsil, right? Like why not try it again? I think this is more for the teams that are ambitious, but they don't live on a coast and they don't live in a very nice place like LA and Miami. Like I think this is for, I can see NYCFC possibly doing something. I can see I want to say Columbus, but they're pretty quiet as of lately. I mean, they have their nice little Cucho Hernandez and their MLS guys, but I don't think they really qualify for this. Like, are they really going to spend 6 to 7 million if they sell Cucho? Maybe, right? Or honestly, now think about this: if you're Atlanta United, you spent 18 million on a latte. What are you
Listen,
doing?
I'm not getting into that tonight. I'm already
No,
pissed off. I'm
like
even more mad about that after stewing on it a little bit more.
you could go buy Chicho Arango for $4 million. The Quakes will sell you him, like because Fisher needs to make that money, So this is a weird one. I'm not gonna lie to you. This is weird. Shoot, if you're Atlanta, why not buy Giroud?
Hell no. What are you talking about? No.
$5 million.
No. That's the thing though. You can't, like, if they buy him, they're gonna have to spend money on him and then they're gonna inherit that contract. They don't want that.
I guess Giroud, but I mean 18 million. You save how much? So I don't know. I'm thinking, oh, you know what? This Duncan McGuire.
You see this?
One.
Hey,
Joveljic, yeah.
But here's the thing. Joveljic is also no longer a U22. His a grace period for the length of his contract to be considered a U22, it's over. I think it's the last year of your contract when you're 25 years old is the last year you can be considered a U22. So he will be either sold or he will have to get a new contract with the Galaxy in 2025. So I'll be curious to see what happens with that. That would be a good player to buy.
This might be good for players that are on 1-year deals, basically, right?
Yeah,
and you incentivize them to have a good season, and then you make them a higher paid player, right?
No, exactly. What if New York City? We talked about this earlier about Evander. What if New York City FC sells Santiago Rodriguez?
Right.
And Evander would be a really good replacement for him with New York City FC. I think that we will start to see this. This is something that has needed to happen. It's just weird. It is weird. And you know what I'll be curious to see? I'm curious. I'm going to be curious to see who is going to be the first person acquired in this new format system, whatever you want to call it. Who's going to be the first person sold with this new mechanism?
I want to see what the chat has to say. Do you think it'll be a DP or a non-DP? That's what I'm interested in too. Will you see like normal guys being traded for $1 million, or will you see guys? Because maybe you want a guy like. Let me think of a player that's not Tam or Gam. Maybe you want a Paul Marie from San Jose, but you don't want to spend Gam on it. So maybe you just throw them $500K, right? That's another weird thing too. It's like, this player could help us down the stretch. A lot of games this season, but we don't want to use our Gam because we need our Gam. So let's just throw the Earthquakes $500K. Will they take it? Right. So that it is interesting to think about, or a guy like Obed Vargas, are you gonna, pony up and spend $5 million right now and beat Club America to it? It's kind of interesting.
That could be a good mechanism for these younger talented players like Obed Vargas, who Club America are reported to be in advanced negotiations to buy. The Cooligans have stopped by tonight. It's interesting. They said, in my opinion, this feels like a bit of a release valve to help with disgruntled players and move them within the league without too many hurdles. If there's a buyer, teams can just agree on a fee. And that's why I think in this article that Tom wrote that he mentioned Evander and Lucho Acosta, because those are two players, maybe different reasons of why they're disgruntled, but they are disgruntled. And this gives them an easy mechanism because a team is, for example, Evander, right?
Yeah.
Great season. Realistically could stay in MLS in 2025. As long as they can get a new deal, I think he would stay. How much GAM would you have to trade to get someone like him? You would have to give away probably all the amount you have. You're not going to be able to get a player like that for what you paid for Leo Campana. You're probably going to have to give like $5, $6, maybe even $7 million in GAM, and that's just not feasible for a team to do without just completely demolishing any chance they have of like competing. So this is why I think it's a stepping stone. This is going to help everybody. This is going to help the big teams, and it's going to help the small teams be able to get these players in here who can prove themselves and maybe get a bigger land at a bigger club in the league.
Yeah, shout out Alexis and Christian. Thank you for stopping by. The Cooligans. Make sure you check them out. They're real funny. I was gonna say they're hella funny, but they're Americans. Yeah. But real quick, this is honestly, as a fan, I'm excited for this personally, because you keep superstars in the league, or this is another mechanism to keep your superstars in the league. Evander is a superstar in this league. People fall in love with superstars. People want to follow superstars. People want to watch superstars. So I felt like MLS was missing that. I felt like every time you got to love a guy, he would be gone. Like, for example, LAFC, Diego Rossi had a great season, won the Golden Boot with LAFC, and he was off to Europe. Maybe that doesn't happen as much anymore because of this situation. Like Evander becomes an MVP candidate. You fall in love with the player, you get to know a little bit more of the story, and he's not gone. He stays around. But still, there's still going to be that ambition to go to Europe. So it is interesting. But at least, like the Cooligans were saying, it's another mechanism, at least, to try to keep your superstars around.
Guys, we are like 11 likes from 50. We got to get to 50 likes. We got 90 of you in the chat. We got to get those likes up right now. We got to hit 100 by the end of this, or at least by tomorrow, like we did the last couple nights.
Smash that like button.
Smash that like button. Share with a friend. We're having a good conversation. A lot of good people joining us to talk about this interesting new mechanism. Now, Kennedy just brought up an interesting question. He says, do they give a deadline window for when this trade mechanism is open? Now, it's open immediately. I think he said it's effective immediately, but I would assume that's going to be similar to like all the other player movement. That it's going to be the transfer deadline, and then I think the roster freeze is sometime in like April for the first one, and then it's in September for the second one. So I think it's going to be like the same guidelines of player movement as it is with the other rules. But we'll have to see. Like there's still a lot that needs to be clarified and what this is going to mean. And this is a big step. I will say, I want to know what you guys think too. And I'm going to get Fabi's opinion on this. If I had to give it a grade, like 1 through 10 on how big of a deal I think this is for the league, I would probably give it a 7. Like it's not the biggest deal that you can have. It's not a 10, but it's not a no deal. I mean, it's going to help some teams. It's going to help player transactions in the league be a little more fluid. So it's got to be better than average. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. I want to know what you guys think about what you'd give it out of a 10. What would you give it, Fabi?
Put your number in the chat. I want to see that too. But I mean, the 10 to me would be the schedule change. That would be a 10.
10.
Yeah, 10 would be salary cap gone. Poof, that's a 10. But
Sydney Sweeney 10.
Hey, whoa! Hey, Jessica,
spicy.
All right.
Okay.
We're on the West Coast out here.
Okay, gotcha.
I
didn't mean to get you sidetracked. I see you over there.
I'm all like,
sorry,
discombobulated now.
You're grunting and stuff.
I'm thinking about Fantastic Four. No, I'm kidding. Real quickly, this is a 9. This is huge. Because,
9
because now you can sell a DP and you have cover. you can look at a guy like Hani Mukhtar, hasn't been in the MVP kind of race a little bit, maybe not playing to his fullest extent in Nashville, but let's say you sell off Facundo Torres for a good amount, you go get Hani for some money, and then boom, you have Gam next year, and you didn't even touch anything with your intra-league kind of trades or anything like that. So I think this is a pretty big deal, guys. Like, we need to get these rules, and I also want to know when this was implemented. Like, why did this take so long? What forced them to do this? Right? Like, was it the backlash that Garber got at the MLS Cup, where he literally said we're not doing anything, and then all the reporters in the room were just blank stared, like, "Are you serious? You're not going to add a fourth DP?" Did this come because of that? Did they do this over Zoom? Because usually you hear about this a meeting like this. You usually hear about this pretty soon, right? Like they're going to meet in Miami for a meeting, and then all of a sudden this drops. I think last year actually that did happen. Media day happened, and then the owners meeting was like either the next day or the day after, or MLS Cup happened, and then basically the owners met too. So it is interesting. I like it a lot because you get to keep stars in the league. People get to keep falling in love with stars. Yeah, I like it a lot. I mean, I just wish it was like you can do a new deal, because if you can do a new deal with them, shoot, Insigne would probably be on a different team.
So I want to hit on this real quick. I think that this is a rule that's going to evolve. Okay. Yeah. To my best knowledge, when TAM was introduced in 2015, which they used to honestly bring in Giovanni Dos Santos, they created a mechanism so that the Galaxy could buy down Omar Gonzalez and bring Giovanni Dos Santos to MLS. That rule has evolved. It was like 500K, Favi. You got to use 100K in TAM over 5 years, but that was short-lived. And then they just kept increasing each year and each year and each year, more and more TAM. Now they're trying to go away from TAM and go back and go more into, lean more into GAM, because it gives a little bit more freedom of spending. But we saw how they went from like 100K the first year to like it's like 2.8 million right now per year you get in TAM. So this is 2 buys, 2 sells right now. But who knows? By 2027, it could be 6 sells and 6 buys if you want to by that time. So right. I think this rule is going to evolve. It's going to change. They're going to figure it out. I think they're just testing the waters with it. They're trying it out. They're going to see what happens, see if it does help or doesn't make any difference or it hurts. It's like MLS is kind of a guinea pig right now. They're just testing all this stuff out, man, and seeing what works. Now, it's not as fast as we would want it to be, but this is a better step in the right. I had some of my friends were texting me earlier, just absolutely destroying this rule, saying how dumb it was to only be 2-2. But look, I've learned to be grateful for MLS doing anything, because they have been stagnant on a lot of things. So as long as they're doing something and just not just doing the same thing over and over and over again, I have to take that as a win.
Yeah. I was just looking at the likes. We read over 50. Hey, what's up? 50 likes. Let's go.
I appreciate it. This is gonna be a shorter stream because this was an emergency stream because it was a big deal. I appreciate you guys tuning in with us. Had some big people in the chat tonight. Of course, you all are big people to me. I appreciate all your guys' support. Favi, this is a big deal. I think 7 out of 10 is a big deal. Not the biggest, but it's a big deal.
All right, what team do you think uses it first?
I think Portland's going to be the first team to sell.
Okay, buy. First team
Evander.
to buy.
I like the shout that John had. Hey, this is another good shout. This is a really good shout. This gives San Jose the opportunity to buy Carlos Hill.
Okay.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Good one, John.
We get 200 likes on this video. I'll start the Kickstarter to go buy Carlos Hill, all right? For San Jose.
If we get 300 likes, Fabi will shave his head on next live stream.
No way, no. Oh,
yeah, that'd be funny. I don't know about that one. Yo, if I get, we'll talk about that later. Just put a pin in that.
Yeah, but Carlos Hill is a perfect candidate for this too. But they don't have a DP open, so I don't know.
They don't have a DP open, but they can maybe work something out.
Yeah, 4.
Say that again.
They have 4 DPs right now: Espinoza, Hernan, Chicho, and Grezzo. I mean, Grezzo, I still have to see if he made it to practice, but they do have 4 technically.
What if they could do a player swap and pay a difference? So they could trade
Oh, yeah.
Espinoza to New England and then give like 3 million along with him because he's going to cost less than probably. I don't think it'd be a straight up swap for Carlos Heel.
I don't know. If anything, I would see Grezzo moving, and then Carlos Heel kind of. But I don't think they want Grezzo. But still, like that too. A DP that's possibly on the way out. Maybe you take a flyer on him for a year. Like San Diego, if you're not gonna get De Bruyne, go get Hani Mukhtar.
I could see. I do think that Hani Mukhtar is a player. Now he's kind of a rare case, actually. I think he loves Nashville. I think his wife is from Tennessee. Shout out to Tennessee. And so I don't think he would per se want to move, but to say that he didn't have that tie to the state, that could be a player that you would want. And I think that
Carlos Hill to San Diego, right? Who doesn't want to play in better weather, right?
No, they could do better than that. They got bigger aspirations than that. But I do think that Evander is going to be traded to one of 3 clubs. This is all speculation, just guessing. I think that Orlando was a good shout by John. I think Austin FC is a good shout if they do sell Driussi. And I think New York City FC is a good landing spot for him too if they sell Santiago Rodriguez.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. I think this is more of a I sell my DP, I fill it fast type of deal.
And he's proven, right? Evander, I got absolutely grilled because I didn't think Evander was MVP in 2024, but there was a lot of people who were Evander stands, truthers, right?
He had a lot of goal contributions, and what else?
He did. He's very good, and so that's the thing. That is the thing that MLS normally doesn't do. How often are you able to buy a player in the league that's proven in the league? You don't normally get those guys. They normally get sold.
Well, yeah. How often do MVP candidates move, right? And if
they don't
within MLS, right? Pozuelo was one that was weird. He went to Miami, but his value.
And look what happened, though. Do you remember what happened to Miami when he went there?
They had
They were good. They were good. No, they were. I mean, like they obviously they couldn't keep him. Right. It was a weird circumstance because he wasn't technically. I think he might have been a DP, but I think Toronto was like maybe paying some of his salary. Either way, he was. I think they made the playoffs that year, and that was with Gonzalo Higuain. But a player like Evander, who is really good in the league, those guys don't normally get traded or sent to other teams in the league. That could be a difference maker and be a great contributor on another team. I mean, he had 15 goals, 19 assists. Who wouldn't want that?
All right, this is a weird one, but what about Ricky Puig?
Dude, there's no shot they are selling Ricky Puig. There is no.
He's retiring as a Galaxy player.
No shot they are selling Ricky Puig. The dude's going to get a statue with the Galaxy one day. I believe so. Now, what about this? What about if this rule? A lot of whataboutisms tonight.
What about Bouanga? Right.
What about Thiago Almada before he got traded? What if he'd went to Miami? What if Miami's like, we'll pay you $20 million for him? Bring him down to Inter Miami.
Shoot, look at Bouanga, right? Bouanga could go to any team. I mean, you could probably get more within MLS for $9 million.
Hey, Bogusz.
Yeah, Bogusz is another one.
Bogusz is being rumored with a Liga MX team, dude. Get that. Don't be selling. Look, I'm not trying to help any Liga MX teams out. I'm not trying to give them any of our good players. Hell no.
I think it's
I'll sell them for a discount somewhere else.
Bogusz.
Not happening, dude. Not happening. I mean, they already took a couple players this past summer, but
he's like, hey, LA, I love all my Mexican people, you know?
Hey, we didn't even talk about this. We talked about player movement. We talked about if this guy leaves, could they fill him with this guy? What if a team in MLS wants Driussi?
Right. Well, I don't know, dude. I think
he wants to go to Argentina. He wants to go back to River Plate. But what if New York City or LA wants him? What if a team, a big market, not the Galaxy, but LAFC I mean, dude, he was really good in 2022 with very little help.
Yeah,
very good. And I think he's kind of gotten bored in Austin. I think he needs a change of scenery. But what if a team really wanted him and they're like, hey, listen, River Plate's going to pay you $9. I'll pay you $9 for him.
Right. No, that's exactly what I was saying. Yeah. Like Bouanga's another one too. I mean, you need to make space for Griezmann, you sell him. You sell him to New York. Bouanga in New York would be Shoot, I would like that.
Red Bulls?
Yeah, I mean, I think Bouanga would be a stellar player in a big market like that.
No, I agree. I definitely agree with that. And D Life says, I think this rule was made to help strengthen the Club World Cup teams. Well,
Yeah,
it's not going to help Seattle because I don't think they're really going to do much. I think we've seen them bolster their roster, but Miami has to capitalize on this. Miami, honestly, Favi, they should take these two spots. They have to be defense. They need to get
yeah,
either two center backs or one center back and a
right,
really good goalkeeper in MLS.
right.
That's what I would do with it.
Yeah, I mean, is Blake a DP still?
No. Andre Blake's a good shout, but I don't think Andre Blake is a very loyal guy. I don't think he would leave
I
the
think
Union.
you have to look at guys that aren't going to be on winning teams too, right? And willing to accept this.
Yeah, I think that Yamar could be a good shout, maybe for Miami.
Yeah, I guess
Maybe
so. Yamar, that
Yamar, not Neymar, not to get confused with the with the Brazilian legend, but who could reunite with MSN sometime soon. But Yamar, the Colombian international,
mhm,
that'd be. I mean, that's a proven center back. Or there was rumors back this summer that they were potentially going to trade Toto Alvarez to Cincinnati straight up for Miles Robinson.
hmm,
That was a rumor. What if Inter Miami? Well, that's probably not going to happen now because Tata Martino liked Miles Robinson and so did Chris Henderson.
hmm.
But a player like that's a proven defender in the league. You could get all kinds of possibilities. And you know what? Here's the thing: as soon as they announce this first move, Fabi and I are going to do a live stream that night. We're going to make a pledge. We're going to do a live show at night to
If you
talk
get
about it.
100 likes.
If we get 100 likes, yes. I think we were almost at 60. If we get 100 likes, Favi and I will do a stream that night talking about the move. But listen, Favi, I'm going to have to wrap. I got a hard out here. I got to leave. It's almost 10 o'clock. I appreciate you for stopping by, my friend. Back to back.
Yeah,
Back to back.
we do.
It's what we do, man. Hey, it is what it is, right? So I appreciate you. Make sure you follow him at Fabian Rankel on Twitter, X, Threads, Instagram, etc. Best journalist I know in MLS. Best journalist I know in general. Don't know a lot of journalists, but that doesn't matter. He's still the best there is. He's the best there is, and he's a good friend of mine. So go follow him, go support him, and if you haven't already, like the show, get to 100 so we can do that emergency live stream when we get the first transaction. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the little bell notification, and also consider being a member of the channel. It helps us out. If you like this content, if you want more of this content, be a member of the channel. There's a link in the description below. It helps me out. I would greatly appreciate it. We're growing the membership audience. Favi, it's been a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Until next time, guys, I will see you all soon.